afternoon, subscribers. Geekonomics here once again with the 100-year life, and we're now into chapter 5, which is entitled Scenarios. So this particular chapter is looking at two things. It's looking at, number one, an individual who is, say, in their 40s, age 40, and looking at the various scenarios available to that particular person and the challenges which that particular person and individual will be presented with over the remainder of their working life, and then contrasting that with the opportunities which are richly rewarded to a person who is just about to graduate from university or just about to move into university, and so they've got their whole working lives in front of them. So let's just look at what Andrew and Linda say with regard to the typical scenarios. So first of all, they say that people who are in their sort of 20s, and indeed even people in their 40s nowadays, they are likely to experience greater labour market churn. So in other words, there'll be a lot more movement within the labour market. It's interesting that we were talking about this today with regard to labour market flexibility. But because of the changes in technology, the advances in technology, traditional jobs will be going out the window to be replaced by either machines, in which case alternative occupations will have to be found for those people, or there will be new opportunities coming. But either way, there will be a greater degree of labour market churn. Now, somebody who is in their 40s is obviously sort of part way through their traditional three-stage life cycle, and with that comes a certain amount of certainty and predictability. Go to school, go to university, go to work, retire. There's a certain amount of predictability with that, and one can forecast that quite readily. But of course, with a long life and with the gift of a long life, then comes the opportunity that there will be greater variety and greater choice. Now, of course, with that, that's kind of unsettling for some people, because that is then more difficult to forecast and more difficult to predict. So the authors here suggest that somebody in their 40s, not somebody in their 40s, let's not say who, but somebody in their 40s might tend to be increasingly sidelined, for example. And there'll be greater technological change. And of course the pension reforms with regard to the pushback of state pension being pushed further and further into the distance, alongside company pension schemes becoming increasingly less rewarding in terms of the benefit that you receive when you retire. That obviously puts the onus on you to work longer, or certainly to be less passive about what you're doing with your life and what you're doing with looking into the future. When you're 18, when you're 15, when you're 16, even when you're 40, you think to yourself, well, pension is a long time away from me. But actually, it'll just come around like that. Life goes very quickly, ladies and gentlemen. So the authors say, let's be less passive, and then suggest some ways of improving your chances of being able to retire early. So for example, retire and then go back to work, maybe on a part-time basis, quite a popular thing to do, because you find that you can earn just as much money if you combine your pension with your earnings as you were earning before you retired. So that's quite a nice thing to do. And that of course then shortens the period of time when you have to be plundering your savings that you've saved over your lifetime, when you are in effect running down those savings and those assets which you've built up over your working life. So that's a way of being less passive about it. Alternatively, maybe you get to your 40s and you think to yourself, oh, I'm a bit fed up with this job, and so maybe you decide to reskill. And the authors use this lovely phrase, I think this is tip top, there'll be more recreation, and that will be coming from time which was previously spent from engaging in recreation. In other words, you'll spend more of your time retraining, engaging in CPD, continuous professional development, in order to improve your skill set. And that will then help you to cope with the ever-changing nature of the workplace. And of course, being healthy and fit helps. Helps you to work harder, work longer, be more concentrated, etc., etc. And an alternative to that, ladies and gentlemen, so we've got be less passive, reskill, or start your own business. Perhaps you'll just come across something and you think, yes, that is for me, I've got an idea and I'm going to run with it. So entrepreneurship. However, what about you young people who are at school or university or just about to graduate? What are the opportunities for you? Because with a longer life, the gift of a long life also means that you will have to work longer, probably about 60 years. So rather than having the traditional 3-stage life, you might have a 5 or 6-stage life. Now that, according to the authors, may take the form of this, for example. So you may leave university and go travelling. Then maybe into your late 20s you'll consider your career and what type of job you're going to do. Then you might step out of your career after 10 years and you might do a little bit of charity work. Then maybe you'll be reaching your late 30s, early 40s, you might think, right, family, let's start a family. Then after starting a family, after a few years, you might decide, right, let's go back to work, back to your career, and then you'll retire, and then you can invest some of your time again back into those intangible assets we talked about with regard to friendships and bonds and all of that type of thing. And so the authors suggest that maybe you might work, you'll have a much more flexible work-life balance. So you might work 3 days, maybe retrain for 2 days. You might have a 3-day weekend and a 4-day working week.